Hello guys, welcome to our channel once again. So today we are going to continue our series where we are talking about Databricks Certified Data Engineering Associate. Databricks has given a sample question paper which has 45 questions and we have already solved till 25. So we'll continue from 26, and if you have not watched our other two part, I would highly recommend you to go back and watch that first. I've been giving links in my earlier two parts also, and here also I'll provide you the links. So let's get started from question number 26. So question number 26 talks about a streaming job where a syntax has been given and one line of syntax has been omitted, and it says that this they want to configure it for stripping job, manipulate data and run, then perform streaming right into the new table. The code block used by the data engineer is below, right? And the condition here is that if data engineer only wants the query to execute a single micro batch to process all of the available data, which of the following lines of code should the data engineer use to fill in the blanks? So you might be knowing, when you are doing a streaming operation in Spark, either you can define a interval through which you want to perform this, or you can do it once. So when you configure it once, it will only execute once and then stop it unless you do it manually. So here the option number A, which says trigger once is equal to true, is the right answer. And if you want to do a continuous interval this job, it has to be processing time is equal to some interval has to be given. It should not be once. Let me show you the syntax which is provided in Microsoft documentation. So if you see here, configuring incremental batch processing, Apache Spark provides trigger once. It means that it will only trigger once, and if you want to give an interval, that would be this syntax: trigger processing time is equal to 10 seconds or whatever interval you want to provide. So it means if you want to do it once, say once is equal to true. If you want to give an interval, you have to give interval in this manner. So if you look at it, says processing time, but it once should not be there. It should be some interval, and if you want to do it only once, the option A is the right answer here. Now moving on to our next question, the data engineer is designing a data pipeline. Source system generates file in a shared directory that is also used by other processes. As a result, the file should be kept as is and will accumulate in the directory. The data engineer needs to identify which files are new since the previous run in the pipeline, and set up the pipeline to only ingest those new files with each run. So, and guys, whenever you are designing your pipeline for incremental run, there will be scenario where you'd be reading from a lake or a place where the files are getting accumulated. So it's not the case that you read the file and you delete it, so that whenever new file gets generated, you just read all the file which is there because you have already removed it, right? So what it says is that it's a shared directory. They cannot remove it, but it's the responsibility of the data pipeline designer to identify which are the new files and only process those. You don't want to process everything all the time, right? Because files will get accumulated. You don't want to process millions of records when there are hardly, say, 100 or 1000 records which are new. So for this kind of designing, now actually Databricks has come up with autoloader. So autoloader is actually a new feature provided by Databricks. I have also created extensive video on that. I'll give the link in the description. You can go through it. So autoloader, what it does is automatically it will keep a track of how many files it has already processed in terms of checkpoints, right? So you don't have to manually configure, or you don't have to write code on custom code for that. Autoloader will automatically do that. So that is what they are trying to highlight here. So for the question number 27, the answer is autoloader. You don't have to do anything. Databricks will manage it, and it will keep track of your incremental files. So whenever you have to design an incremental file in Databricks, you can make use of autoloader. Now moving on to next question. This is also about autoloader only. Here the syntax has been provided, and they are asking that which syntax is correct or everything is correct. We have to identify. So in the first line says streaming underscore df. They are creating a data frame, and the first line is spark.read stream.format cloud files dot option. They are providing the file of the file format of your source file, which is a JSON, and then the schema location has been provided. Load source path. Okay. Now the question is, assuming that schema location and source path have been set correctly, which of the following changes does the data engineer need to make to convert this code block to use autoloader to ingest the data. Let's go through the options. A says data engineer needs to change the format cloud files line to format autoloader. So that is incorrect. You don't have to say autoloader explicitly. Whenever you say cloud files, that means it has to use autoloader. So that is, I believe, option number C, which says there is no change required. The inclusion of format cloud files enables the use of autoloader. So C is actually correct, but let's see others also. B says there is no change required. Database automatically uses autoloader for streaming reads. So yeah, this is not correct because you have to still say format as cloud files, then only it will consider it for autoloaders. Otherwise, it will become just like any other streaming load, right? It would not use autoloader functionality. The D says the data engineer needs to add dot autoloader. That is also incorrect. You don't have to give dot autoloader in any of your syntax. And E says there is no change required. The data engineer need to ask their administrator to turn on autoloader. So there is no configuration which admin has to enable it for autoloader. That is not correct again. So option C is the right answer here. Now our next question talks about a bronze table. So before we get into this, there will be a few questions about bronze, silver and gold. So what I'll do is I'll show you architecture in Databricks, how they have explained about bronze, silver and gold. So once you have understood the architecture, you can answer all the questions related to this. So as here is the architecture which Databricks has been showing in all of their documentation, and this is what they tell in their all the trainings as well. Though it's not hard and fast to follow this, but this gives you more of an guidelines that which you can follow. So if you look at this architecture carefully, left side says batch and streaming. That means your sources are sitting in the left side. Now it's up to you whether you want to ingest it through batch job or through streaming job, right? But the first part which comes in is a branch. So all your data which you are accumulating from different sources has to come and sit into your branch layer. That is what you call a branch layer, right? Then once you have got all the raw data, then you can apply some filtering and cleaning operations, and that would become your silver layer. Now the third layer is the gold layer. That means if you have to do all kinds of modeling, aggregation, so that your presentation layer can just come and pick it, right? So it will be presentation ready. That is your gold layer. So that is how all the three layers are defined. This is what they call it a hop architecture, right? So from the source from where you are ingesting till it becomes ready for presentation. At the rightmost part you see a BI, which can be your Power BI or Tableau or anything which you want to use, right? So these are the three layer which at Databricks has been asking question on your data engineering question, right? Now we'll go back to our question paper and see the question. Now it says which of the following data workloads will utilize a branch table as its source. Here again, don't get confused. It is saying branch table is used as a source. That means it's talking about processing which is happening between bronze and silver, right? So now which operation can happen there? Now A says a job that aggregates cleaned data to create standard summary statistics, right? Now as we have spoken about in our architecture, aggregation mostly will happen in the silver to gold layer. Though again it's not a hard and fast rule, but that is how they have projected it. So we'll go by the Databricks examples. So A will not be the option. B says job that queries aggregated data to publish key insight into a dashboard. Again, this is something which will be used in gold table, not in the bronze table. C says job that ingests raw data from a streaming source into lakehouse. This is the first part where you will actually populate your bronze table. Then you are not using bronze as a source, so C is not the option. D says a job that develops a feature set for a machine learning application. Here also for machine learning applications, you are not going to use a branch layer. Now E says a job that enriches data by parsing its timestamp into human readable format. So E has been given as a right answer here, and rightly so, because from once you have ingested all your data to branch layer, then you are going to apply all your transformation and cleansing. So that way 29 for question number 29, E is the right answer. We'll move on to the next question. Now continues into the same fashion. Question 30 says, which of the following data workloads will utilize a silver table as its source? As we saw, right? Now here silver table as a source. So between silver to gold, we are going to aggregate it. So if you look at directly the D option, it says job that aggregates cleaned data to create standard summary statistic. So here in the same line, that will be the answer. Now moving on to next question, question number 31. Question 31 says, which of the following structured streaming queries is performing a hop from a bronze table to a silver table? So again, we'll apply the same logic between a bronze to silver. What we do mostly is we do the cleaning, and between silver to gold we apply aggregation. If you look at option A and B, both of them are talking about the aggregation, so we will leave out A and B. C says they're adding average column and one extra column onto whatever we already have, and actually it's calling as clean sales. So it's reading at sales and it's calling it as clean sales. So this one looks appropriate, but we'll see the D and E also. So but if you look at D and E, they're not doing anything here. They're just reading it and writing it. I'm not sure what they're trying to do. They're just appending. There's no other operations happening. So with this, option C becomes our most appropriate answer here. Let's move on to next question, question number 32. Now 32 says, which of the following benefits does Delta Live Tables provide for ELT pipelines over standard data pipeline that utilize Spark and Delta Lake on Databricks? Now probably you guys might be knowing the Delta Live Table is their latest offering, and it provides actually a declarative way of defining your transformations. Though it has not been used extensively because it is a new feature and recently they have released it, but this is part of your course, Delta Live Table, so we have to cover it. Now what is the advantage it is giving you, right? That's a question. Option A says the ability to declare and maintain data table dependency. So if you look at the basic description which they have given to define Delta Live Table, they have clearly said it's a declarative way of defining your pipeline. So this definitely looks right, A, but let's see others. The ability to write pipelines in Python and or SQL. So this, you know that this can be done in without Delta Live Table as well. So that is definitely not right. C says ability to access previous version of data table. So that is a feature of Delta Table. Actually, it's not a Delta Live Table feature. So that is incorrect. D says the ability to automatically scale compute resources. You might be knowing that this can be done anyways by any of the clusters. It does not specifically need Delta Live Table. E says the ability to perform batch and streaming queries. Again, that can be done without Delta Live Table as well. So here definitely the question answer number A, option A becomes the right answer. Now question 33 says data engineer has 3 notebooks in ELT pipeline. The notebook need to be executed in a specific order for the pipeline to complete successfully. The data engineer would like to use Delta Live Table to manage this process. Which of the following steps must the data engineer take as part of implementing this pipeline using Delta Live Tables? Okay, so option A says they need to create a Delta Live Table pipeline from the data page. Okay, so the Delta Live Table option is not in the data page, so this is not an option. They need to create Delta Live Table pipeline from the job pages. Yes, so from the job page actually we can create it. Let me show this UI to you first. So currently I am here. Okay, I'm in data science and engineering. So you know the Databricks has 3 different workflows. One is data science and engineering, machine learning, and SQL. So all of them will have slightly different UI. So you need to be in data science and engineering, and within that you need to go to workflows. Earlier it was called jobs. Now it has been renamed to workflow. So if you'll see in workflows, you have option to create Delta Live Table. So it's not in the data or data explorer, it is in the Delta Live Table. So this you need to remember. Now let's go back, and going to the next option, that they need to create Delta Live Table pipeline from the compute page. Again, it's not in the compute page. Need to refactor their notebook to use Python and the DLT libraries. Option E say they need to refactor their notebook to use SQL and create live tables. keyword. So actually I had little doubt because I believe E also looks correct, because in all your DLT pipelines actually you will be using delta live tables, or sorry, the create live table, though the syntax is not this, syntax is slightly different, but yeah, I'm leaving out that. Here option B becomes the right option. So to create a delta live table pipeline, you'll have to go to the job pages. Now going to the next question, question number 34. So 34 question is, a data engineer has written the following query: select star from JSON dot and the path of the file. Data engineer asked a colleague for help to convert this query for use in delta live tables pipeline. The query should create the first table in the DLT pipeline. Which of the following describes the change the colleague needs to make to the query? So before answering this question, let me show you the sample notebook which Databricks has provided for delta live table. Yeah, so I'll give you this link. I think I have already given in other part, but I'll definitely give it in this also. There is a repository where all the sample notebooks has been provided by Databricks specifically for this certification. I would highly recommend you guys to go through it. Now this one is talking specifically about delta live table. So if you look at, they have even given the comments, very nice comments, and it explains very well. Declare branch layer table, right? So here what they are doing is they are creating a branch layer table saying create or refresh streaming live table cells order raw, and you can also provide the comment saying that what this table is about. This is more of a description of your table. As select star from cloud files, and you give the source file path, and you are also saying that you have to infer the schema. This is one of the syntax. Now to use delta live table pipeline and to create a notebook for that, this is a syntax which says create or refresh streaming live table and the table name. Now I'll little bit show you the rest of the thing also. Here they have actually created two branch layer tables. The second one is also branch layer table where they have given the source path. And then in the next step, they are actually creating a silver layer table. In the silver layer table, they are making use of their branch table which they have already created. If you look at this part of the syntax, select, and they are selecting all the column which is available. They are making a join as well. And here the mandatory part is this live. So whenever you are using a live table, you have to give live dot your table name. So you can see that for both the branch table they have used this. Now this will act more like your silver table where you have done some kind of transformation, and at the final stage you'll define your gold table. Now when you're defining a gold table, you are going to make use of your silver table. Now you can see that the silver table which they have created, that has been used here in the query, and they are doing some kind of aggregation. After this, actually it's ready for your presentation layer for Power BI, right? Now again going back to our question, so here to convert that, he has to actually add this line. They need to add a create live table name as line at the beginning of the query. So that would actually make it a branch layer or the branch table for them. So option B is the right answer here. Now quickly moving on to next question. Data set has been defined using delta live table and includes an expectation clause. Yeah, so here a new feature they have added in live table is that you can apply some kind of condition. Based on that, you want your transformation to behave in a certain way. Like here we are expecting our timestamp to be greater than 1/1/2020. Now what would happen if this criteria is not met, right? Again I'll go back to my same notebook which I was showing you earlier. Now here they are clearly called out what happens in the violation, right? So if you have, let me show you here. What it says, expect order number is not null, on violation drop row. So it means if you are telling your pipeline that drop this row in case it is not met, so it will drop it. Now other option is fail the update, pipeline failure when constraint is violated. So if it violates, it will fail the pipeline, it will not continue. In this case, it will only drop the rows, but it will still continue. Now what happens if you don't give anything like that? If you have omitted it, records violating constraint will be included, but violations will be reported in matrix. So this is what our question is about. So here, if you look at the syntax, they have not given anything after that. That means it will be added, but it will be added as a bad record. Now that option is A. Record that violate the expectation are added to the target dataset and recorded as invalid in the event log. So this is what would be your right answer here. So you need to remember other two options also. So there will be questions where you will get other two scenarios. So based on that, you'll have to mark your answers. Now moving on to question number 36. So here it says the delta live table pipeline includes two dataset defined using streaming live table, as we saw in our example. Three datasets are defined against delta live table source using live table. So that means the second ones or the other two are other three datasets are your silver layer, you can assume. The table is configured to run in development mode using the triggered pipeline mode, assuming previously unprocessed data exists and all definitions are valid. What is the expected outcome after clicking start to update the pipeline? Now A says dataset will be updated once and the pipeline will shut down. The compute resources will be terminated. B says all dataset will be updated at set interval. So I think because we are doing a start manually, there is no schedule given. So it will not execute in the set interval. Option B is for set interval. C is also for set interval. So that would not be the answer here. D says all dataset will be updated once and the pipeline will shut down. The compute resource will persist to allow for additional testing. Now this looks correct to me. E says all dataset will be updated continuously and the pipeline will not shut down. So this is also incorrect because it's kind of a trigger once scenario. So it will not be continuously running. Let me show you the options which we have. So if you go to your UI and click on the create pipeline, here you can see you have two options, triggered and continuous, right? So if you look at the comment, what is given, choose the pipeline mode based on the latency and the cost requirement. For your pipeline, triggered pipeline update once and then shut down the cluster until the next manual or scheduled update. Continuous pipeline, keep an always running cluster that ingests new data as it arrives. The property can be changed. It means if you are doing continuous, what will happen is your clusters will always be up and running and it will wait for the new data to arrive and process. But triggered once, what will happen is it will just execute once and then stop it. So D says that all dataset will be updated once and the pipeline will shut down. The compute resource will persist to allow for additional testing. Here I have a doubt here. I am not sure why this has been chosen as an option and why not A. Because A also says the dataset will be updated once and the pipeline will shut down. The compute resource will be terminated. Because if it's a triggered once and it is not keeping update, I mean, it's not your clusters are not going to be up and running, right? Otherwise it will be unnecessary cost to you, so it definitely gets terminated. But I think probably it remains up for some time. That's why they are saying the compute resource will persist to allow for additional testing, probably for your smoke testing or something. It will be up for some more time. So that's why the D has been chosen here as a right answer. If you look at the answer, D is given as answer. Now moving on to our next question, question number 37. Data engineer has a job with multiple tasks that runs nightly. One of the tasks unexpectedly fails during 10% of the runs. Which of the following actions can the data engineer perform to ensure the job completes each night while minimizing compute cost? Option A, they can institute a retry policy for the entire job, and they can observe the task as it runs to try and determine why it is failing. C says they can set up a job to run multiple times, ensuring that at least one will complete. So the first three does not look right, because why would you like to retry the entire job if one task is failing, right? So the retry policy has to be applied to the task level, not at the job level. And you don't want to just manually monitor it and see why it is failing and to fix it, right? So you can definitely apply a retry policy here, and that has to be done at a task level. So option D here is the right answer for 37. Now moving on to question 38, data engineers has set up two jobs that each run nightly. The first job start at 12 and usually complete in 20 minutes. The second job depends on the first job and it starts at 12:30. Sometimes the second job fails when the first job does not complete. So here they have a dependency. So second job has to start only when the first one is completed. Usually it takes 20 minutes, that's why they have given the 30 minutes as an interval or the difference between the two. But if the first one runs more than 30 minutes, that is where the problem would come. So how are you going to resolve that, right? So option A says they can utilize multiple tasks in a single job with a linear dependency. So yes, when you go to the jobs UI, you can add multiple tasks. So let me show that as well. So right now I'm in the workflow tab. I go to jobs. I have already have one job, so I'll show you there only. So here we already have one task added. So let's try to edit it. Okay, let me go here. Okay, I was searching for edit, but yeah, I think it can be done here. So here in the tasks tab, you can see one task is already there. You can add one more task. So this is how it creates a sequence of tasks. So unless first task is completed, it will not move on to the second task. So that will take care of your dependency. That's what the question is about. So answer for 38 is A. They have to utilize the multiple task options here. Moving on to question 39, a data engineer has set up a notebook to automatically process using a job. Data engineer's manager want to version control the schedule due to its complexity. So here they want to do a versioning of your job actually. It's not about the code or your notebook, it's about the job. So how that can be done? So unfortunately, the repository which has been provided in Databricks, that is more about the workspaces and the notebook. So jobs are not covered there. That has to be done manually. So each job you can actually create a JSON file. Let me try to show that. Yeah, we were here, right? So if you have any job, existing job, what you can do is you can say view JSON. Now this is the JSON code for it. This JSON you can actually copy it and store it in repository manually. So this has to be done manually. So for question number 39, let's see. Option C says they can download the JSON description of the job from the job page. So that would be the right answer here. They can submit the job once on a job cluster. So that would not help you. This will not help you in the repository or the version control. And they can submit the job once on all purpose cluster. So that is nothing to do with your version control, right? So for version control, option C is the right answer. Moving on to question number 40, data analyst has noticed that Databricks SQL queries are running too slowly. They claim that this issue is affecting all of their sequentially run queries. They ask the data engineer team for help. The data engineering team notices that each of the queries uses the same SQL endpoint, but the SQL endpoint is not used by any other user. Which of the following approaches can the data engineer team use to improve the latency of the data analyst's queries? They can turn on serverless feature for SQL endpoint. Yes, serverless feature is again in the preview. It has not been released. That's an option. B, they can increase the maximum bound of the SQL endpoint scaling range. They can increase the cluster size of the SQL endpoint. If you look at here, it says that multiple users are querying, they are all using the same endpoint and there has been delay, right? So if you create a cluster in SQL warehouse, that's what we are calling SQL warehouse. Let me show that also quickly. So this is how, no, not this one. I'm in SQL, go to SQL warehouse. When you're creating SQL warehouse, you get an option of cluster size, different cluster sizes. Based on that, it will be charged. So if you choose an 2x small, right, only 4 DBUs you will get. So if your queries are performing low because there are multiple concurrent users, you can actually increase your cluster size. So that's what the option here you will have. They can increase the cluster size of the SQL endpoint and that would actually help them. So answer for question number 40 is C. Now moving on to next question, that an engineering manager uses Databricks SQL queries to monitor their team's progress on fixes related to customer reported bugs. The manager checks the result of the query every day, but they are manually rerunning the query each day and waiting for the result. Which of the following approaches can the manager use to ensure the result of the query are updated each day? So here probably they are running the query manually, but it can be scheduled actually. I think that is the answer they are looking for. So let's see where is the option. They can schedule the query to run every 1 day from the job UI. They can schedule the query to refresh every 1 day from the queries page in Databricks. So yes, the scheduling option is in the queries page actually, not in the job UI. So option B is the right answer here. So and there are multiple features which are provided. You can create queries, you can save the result of that, you can pin it actually to the dashboard and it can be refreshed. You can even provide the alert mechanism there. Probably there are more questions in and around that. So next question 42. A data engineer team has been using Databricks SQL query to monitor the performance of ELT job. ELT job is triggered by a specific number of input records being ready to process. The Databricks SQL query returns the number of minutes since the job most recent run time. Which of the following approaches can enable the data engineer team to be notified if the ELT job has not been run in an hour? So again here they are actually trying to utilize the feature of their alert. So alert can also be given based on your condition. So let me show that one of the example. Yeah, so this is also one of the notebooks provided by that repository which I was talking about. In that notebook, you can clearly see the instruction which they have provided. Set up an alert, and that alert we can provide based on the queries and the conditions. So you can provide the conditions here. So those conditions will be utilized here in this question. So question number 42. If you look at D option, they can set up an alert for the query to notify them if the returned value is greater than 60. It means if it has not run for more than 60 minutes, that alert will go. So that's how they will be able to monitor that there is something wrong and it has not run for last 60 minutes. So this will be your answer, option number D. Now moving on to next question 43. The data engineering manager has noticed that each of the queries in Databricks SQL dashboard takes a few minutes to update when they manually click the refresh button. They are curious why this might be occurring. So a team member provides a variety of reasons on why the delay might be occurring. Which of the following reasons fails to explain why the dashboard might be taking a few minutes to update? So they're running the queries to refresh it, and behind the scene it's running for some time, and they are trying to figure out why it is running slow. So there are different options given here. A says that SQL endpoint being used by each of the queries might need a few minutes to start up. Oh yes, that is correct. It may take some time to start up. The queries attached to the dashboard might take a few minutes to run under normal circumstances. So if you are querying a large data set and if you have multiple joins in the query, so it might take some more time, right? C says the queries attached to dashboard might first be checking to determine if new data is available. So that also depends on your query, how you have written it. D, the job associated with updating the dashboard might be using a non-pooled endpoint. So this does not look right, because here when we are talking about the data warehouse cluster, you only have to provide the size of the cluster. Behind the scene it takes care of VMs, right? So I have not seen any option where you can create a pool of clusters the way you do it in the normal clusters, right? So I think D is not appropriate. So that's what the question says. Reason fails to explain. That means we have to find out which one might not be the right answer. So here D becomes your right answer. Moving on to 44. This question is more about giving permissions. Now in the Delta tables or in Databricks catalog, you can provide permission the way you do it in the SQL. So if some user which is new.engineer@company.com, they want to use the table sales, so what is the permission you have to give for selecting? That is now question number 44. So the syntax for that is grant select on table. You have to give a table name and to whom you are providing it, right? That is how it will be. So grant usage, yes, usage is something which every user needs to have it for any kind of permission. So usage is mandatory, but then to give a specific permission on select, you have to give select also. So E also says grant select on table, but here they have switched it. Instead of giving a table name, they have given the username. So the right syntax would be C. Now moving on to our last question. New data engineer, new.engineer at company.com has been assigned to an ELT project. The new data engineer will need full privileges. Again, it's about the privileges. So there is a complete module on Databricks about the privileges. If you can just go through that, you'll be able to answer a few of these questions which will come in the certification. So because we have to give a full privilege here, A option says grant all privileges on table this to this. So I think this is the correct syntax here. So this will provide them all the privileges on the table rather than just giving selective permissions. You are giving all privileges. So here again, answer for 45 is A. So with this we have actually completed. There are only 45 questions provided, and I can tell you more or less these are the questions which they are asking. Little bit of tricks here and there, but if you have covered this much, definitely you will be able to pass the exam. So best of luck for your exam, and please like it, comment it, and share it with your friends. Thank you. Thanks for watching.